Have you ever heard about the Great Firewall of China? I certainly have, and I've heard many horror stories, especially when you're using it to access Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 or manage Intune or anything that needs Entry ID or initial access, those kind of things. I'm actually on holiday at the moment in China, and I thought let's take this opportunity to test out all this, see what it looks like. What can I access? What can't I access? Can I access Teams? Can I access Azure Virtual Desktop? If I wanted to work in China, could I work in China? That's what today's video is going to be all about. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, we're going to test Azure Virtual Desktop, we're going to test Teams, and then we're going to use an alternative solution, which I found a lot more reliable because there are a lot of caveats to this, and I'll explain those further in the video. But it all comes down to networking, essentially. Okay, so that's what today's video is going to be about. So if that's the topic you're interested in, keep on watching because it's certainly an interesting one to watch. All right, let's get into the video. All right. So first, let's have a think about what the problem actually is. So the problem that people will experience is, say, for example, I'm a US employee and I come to China. I plug in my physical laptop and I try to access my desktop back in the US. Okay. The problem that you will have is China has decided to block some of the Microsoft public endpoints. Okay. And these endpoints are very important. So if you want to connect to any services like Office 365 or Azure Virtual Desktop or Intune or Windows 365, you need to connect to those public endpoints. And what you'll find is if you connect from a device that's directly on a China internet connected device, you may find that some of those connections will fail. Okay. That will mean maybe intermittent logon requests, network dropouts, or just won't work at all. Right. So that's problem number one. And problem number two is that China actually has its own version of Azure. Okay. So if you were a company and you wanted to operate from within China, you may find that some of your internal China employees may not be able to connect to some of your US resources, okay, because public endpoints are just blocked, right? And so today we'll talk about some of the solutions, start some of the testing that I've been doing while I've been here. But essentially, there's two ways you can fix this problem. Okay, so if you are a company who's wholly just operating within China, you can use the internal Chinese version of M365 or Azure. And so that's the 21 ViaNet solution, right? It's run by a third-party company. And that's essentially a completely segregated off Microsoft Azure subscription and Azure tenant and services, right? And so you would have to run dual subscriptions, one for your US company and one for your Chinese company, right? And those two can't talk to each other. They're completely separate, right? So essentially you'll be doing dual management. The solution which I've been reading a lot about, and this is what seems to be a lot of what people use, is you can actually connect via VPN to Singapore or Hong Kong. And that method, you get decent network connection because the latency is a lot lower than you would be doing if you're going like to a desktop in the US, for example. And it seems to work quite well. So what I'll do today in today's video, I'm going to basically connect to a desktop direct from the Chinese network and just show you what that experience looks like. And then I'm also going to connect to a desktop with a VPN connection through to Hong Kong that I've built within the East Asia Azure subscription. Right. So if you're interested to see what that experience looks like, then this is going to be a good video to watch. And I realize this may not be for everyone, but I just thought while I'm here, I just wanted to do this testing and show you what that experience looks like. And the other caveat, I think, what I've been reading about is if you wanted to create a sort of separate subscription or tenant within Azure, the services that are available are a bit behind against the global subscription, especially around sort of Intune functionality and Teams functionality and that kind of thing as well, which is probably why a lot of companies make the decision not to use the Chinese version, but to use the global Azure subscription and then just connect via VPN to Singapore or Hong Kong, access to resources that way, which obviously would only work well if you have a very decent VPN connection. Okay. All right. So in my usual video style, that's more of the theory. So let's actually go and have a look and see what this actually looks like. So if you're interested in seeing exactly what services are available from within the 21 ViaNet service from China, then this is KB article, which basically covers a lot of that information. So you can see here, it lists out, okay, what entry details are available, what B2C settings are available, that kind of thing. If you, after particular settings or particular services, just to make sure they're available, then this is definitely a good one to go through. And as you can see here as well, these are the different endpoints that they have. So wherever within Azure, we have star.windows.net. Within China, we have star.china cloud, star.china cloud API.cn. Everything is a different endpoint. So this is what I mean. If you're accessing internally, if you're working in China and you don't need any of the global services, then it's definitely recommended just to create a subscription in the 21 ViaNet. But if you're working on a global level, then that's when it might make sense to create a VPN connection. And from there, you can access all the global Azure services from within there. But yeah, if you want to see what is and what isn't supported, then this is definitely the KB article that you want to go to. And I'll put a link in the description as well. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to test is a connection to Azure Virtual Desktop. As mentioned, I've created a desktop in the East Asia region, so that covers Hong Kong and Singapore. So this is me directly on the Chinese network. Okay, so I'm not connected via VPN. I'm just connected directly to an internet connected device on the Chinese network. So let's have a look and see what this looks like. Okay, so you can see here we are connecting successfully, right? So let's just have a quick look and see what that looks like from a network perspective. So say my connection quality is good and WebSocket is enabled, so that's good. And you can see there we're using multipath as well. Round trip time is like 90 milliseconds. We're getting available bandwidth of 13 megabits a second, so that's not too bad. So let's just try and learn some applications and just see what happens. So if I go there, so you can see here the delay is actually okay. So I'm not sure if I've got my Outlook configured. I can't remember if I have or not, but we'll soon see. But let's just launch Outlook and launch Word as well. Let's see what that launches. Oh yeah, don't actually have that installed, but you can see here for me, I'm clicking, it's responding pretty much instantly. So it's actually quite a good, decent connection. And just mention this is going directly from the Chinese network. And there you go. So at the moment, I'm connected to Hong Kong. Okay. So that's where my VM is located within the Microsoft data center. And just to prove this, just so you can see, I'm just going to go here and just show you that I am connected directly to China. So I can see, and you can see here the problem, I can't access Google, right? Because I'm on the Chinese network. So there you go. So I'm on the Chinese network. So that's working fine. So I'm able to log on to that desktop. The network seems to be okay. You can see that I get some Chinese stuff there. Yeah, so this is working perfectly fine. But the only caveat that I've heard people say is the network connectivity can be quite intermittent because you're taking a different network route, essentially, because I'm accessing the China resources, right? So yeah, you just need to, from what I've read, I mean, I've been testing this and it seems to work okay, but from what I've read, if you want a more reliable solution, it's best to go through this sort of Singapore gateway solutions or VPN solutions, okay? Which is what we're going to test next. I think the other one to test is just to see whether I can access Windows 365. So let's try that. So yeah, so this is working. Obviously, it's not a fresh logon, but I'm still accessing my Windows 365 desktop, and that seems to be working perfectly fine. So again, I'm able to launch applications. I'm able to see what the connection information is like. So this time it's saying the round trip is high. Interesting. So available bandwidth 41 megabits, UDP relay, multipath. Round trip time 260 milliseconds. So that's quite high. And that's connecting to Windows 365, but that's my Windows 365 desktop back in the UK. But saying that with 265 milliseconds is actually not bad at all. Not getting much delay in there at all. Made to come in here and type stuff and it's perfectly fine. Good performance there from the RDP protocol. All right, so that's quite an interesting test. So what we'll now do is we will connect to the VPN. So instead of being on the Chinese network, I'll actually be on a Hong Kong or Singapore network, depending on where the VPN sends me. All right, back in a second. Okay, so we're now going to make a connection onto my desktop while I'm connected to the VPN in Singapore. So let me just show that for you. So I go to Google. So I can now access Google again. I go to what's my IP. As you can see there, I'm now in Hong Kong. Okay, so instead of being on China, I'm now in Hong Kong. So let's see how that affects the actual connection to Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, so that's logging on successfully, which is always a good sign. Okay, so reconnected to my session. So now let's see what those networking details look like. So go to connect information. So connection quality is good and multipath is enabled. And we are getting a round-trip time of 90 milliseconds and available bandwidth of 220 milliseconds, which is not bad as well. Okay, so I'm just going to launch a few apps and just see what that looks like. So again, getting a good response time here. Just that was something I was testing before. So testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 VPN. So yeah, really good response time from there as well. So that's working really well. So to me, I could happily work like this. There's pretty much no delay. I'm clicking around, but the most important thing is I can access everything. Yeah. So the good thing is I would not be restricted on this desktop in any way. So for example, while I've been doing my sort of testing or I've been playing about here within China, there's a couple of obvious things which are normally blocked. All right, so that's the testing completed. Quite interesting results, as you can see. So I was able to access Azure Virtual Desktop and both Windows 365 from within China, accessing my desktops located in Hong Kong or East Asia by subscription, and the performance is perfectly fine, right? I had no issues whatsoever. And you can see the response time was quite high when I was connected to my Windows 365 desktop because that is located back in UK South, but it worked perfectly fine. So I had no issues there at all. And you're probably thinking, what other resources don't quite work? Well, the biggest ones that I've had a problem with personally are accessing Google, right? I use Google a lot for my searches and also stuff like ChatGPT as well. That doesn't work. And certain financial services, they don't work either. And that's why it's always really useful when you come to China just to get a VPN, install it on your laptop and your mobile phone, and you have no problems whatsoever. The only thing which I haven't managed to get working at all is TikTok, but I'm not too bothered about that. So yeah, interesting. That's it from this video. Quite not as polished as my usual video because I'm in a different location and don't have all my usual equipment with me, so I've had to try to make do. My wife was nice enough to order me a microphone because I couldn't get any decent audio from the room I'm in, so hopefully it sounds good. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this because you don't often get the chance to do stuff like this. Being the geek that I am, I just wanted to explore to see, okay, what does connectivity to Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 look like from within China? And as I mentioned before, my general advice is if you have a lot of employees from within China and you need to make sure you have premium network connectivity, then it's probably best to run a separate subscription tenant from within China and let them connect to those resources. But as I say, there are some services which may be lagging behind, which maybe or maybe not be a problem. And if you don't want to have the complications of managing multiple tenants and multiple subscriptions, and you're happy with your Chinese employees connecting to Hong Kong or something, because obviously there's going to be some data regularly to some compliance stuff, that kind of thing, then a VPN is an option, right? Then from that, you'll get the full services from there as well. Yeah, a lot of stuff to think about, but hopefully somebody watching this may find it useful who's in that kind of situation, who has employees either in China or employees who want to work from China. And this kind of shows you what the connectivity looks like. The other thing I mentioned, I forgot to mention in the video, Teams seems to work perfectly fine as well. I did a call to some of my colleagues from Teams from connecting directly to China, and that worked perfectly fine. Yeah, that's it from today's video, and I will see you when I'm back in the UK and for the next one. Thanks, goodbye.